I'm Aditya Perry, and this is my project titled Radishes and Soap Pollution. Here's a brief introduction to my experiment. This experiment tested the effects of soap on radishes during the mature stages of plant growth. I tested this by injecting a soap solution into the roots of the radishes every day and measuring their growth. My motivation for this project may come into question. You see, household soaps can get into bodies of water. They do this through drainage from faucets or drainage from laundry machines, both of which are mixed with soap. And since they're in bodies of water, they will come into contact with plants. And as household cleaning products become stronger and more chemically advanced, plants could potentially be harmed. My list of materials is as follows: 2 pots, 10 radish seeds, some hand soap, a dropper, a cup, and of course, soil. Here's my list of methods. First, I would apply an equal amount of soil to each pot. Next, I would plant 5 seeds in each pot, following all the instructions on the packet. After that, I designated which pot would hold the control plants and which pot would hold the experimental plants. After the plants sprouted, I watered them daily. After this, I created a soap solution. To do this, I used 1 squirt of soap mixed with 2 ounces of water. This eventually totaled about a 10% soap solution. Using the dropper, I would inject the soap solution into the soil and around the roots of each experimental radish. I would do this every day, and I would inject the same amount every day. After all this was done, I would record the height of all the plants. After all my data had been collected, I graphed it. Here are some pictures from my first day of experimentation. As you can see, at least 1 plant in each pot has sprouted, allowing me to start the experiment. And although this may not be too obvious, the sprouts are pretty much the same. There's no real difference here. This is a chart of the plant growth over the 11 days of my experiment. As you can see, some plants sprouted after the experiment began, and I factored that in. Other than that, however, there's nothing really unusual about my data. And that brings us to the plants now. This photo was taken on my last day of experimentation. And as you can see, it's not really that easy to tell which plant is the experiment and which is the control. They look pretty similar. And as I mentioned earlier, the plant on the left is the experiment, the plant on the right is the control. And in fact, the experimental plant almost looks healthier than the control plant. Here's the graph of my results. In the dark blue, you can see the experimental plant. And the trend it follows doesn't really differ from that of the control 1 plant, the control 2 plant, and the control 3 plant. There's no real significant difference in trend. That brings me to my conclusion. Based on the fact that the experimental plant has little or no difference between the control plant physically, and the fact that there's a minimal change in growth trend between the control plant and the experimental plant, I have to come to the conclusion that soap must not have a significant effect on the growth of plants during mature stages of development.